Well, I think the best way to present this evidence is via a series of images, as I have tried to assemble here, starting with the main bulk of the evidence that I used to draw my conclusions during this interview from this image in front of us here. What I'm going to do is just blow it up bigger so that you can have a closer look. Freeze the screen if you like and take your time to have a look at these details that I used to arrive at the conclusions I did. Starting of course with the similarity of the features between this young lady I met in 1993 called Miriam and Mary Shelley, born 200 years ago. And starting of course with the fact that her bright orange hair, striking features and intelligence, and the details that I initially was furnished with are here on the left. Striking bright orange hair, stunningly beautiful, a librarian, highly intelligent, fearless personality, fascinated by Greece and Greek culture, sometimes cried a lot as if struck with death and grief. And lo and behold, I found all these identical details matching with Mary Shelley. Now, the second thing to note here is that the timing of Miriam's death and the manner in which she died allowed me and gifted me certain critical details that I was then able to use to match with Mary Shelley's. So this is like a second set of details that arrived after this poor young lady died. And the fact that she died in Switzerland aged 19 meant that of course I was able to match it with Mary Shelley publishing Frankenstein when she was 19 years old during 1818 on January the 1st when the book was published, shortly after a holiday in Switzerland. So the very fact that this poor young lady died at 19 years old in Switzerland gifted me the opportunity to match it with this set of details here. So in other words, I see clear evidence this young lady laid down her life and sacrificed her life for me to have this information, and not just for me but for you as well. And I think that should be something we keep at the front of our mind this entire process. But what I'd like to do to begin with is just show you quickly how I arrived at collecting this evidence in the first place, starting with a timeline of events that all began in 1993 when I jumped on a bus to Schaffhausen in Switzerland from Bournemouth, shown in this road map here. When I arrived, I found this lovely idyllic little town just north of Zurich. This is where I found Miriam living in a flat. This is the young lady here that I found in 1993 living in this place in a flat with my friend Lorraine at the time, and to find out initially this first set of details. Now, what happened next is of extraordinary significance in terms of the air of mystery that was left and unanswered questions in the wake of Miriam's death, because this was the next thing to happen on the timeline here. Of course, 2 or 3 weeks after I left, after this 10-day holiday, Miriam dies in these tragic circumstances in a carbon monoxide accident. Now, the very fact, like I say, she died meant that there was an air of mystery and unanswered questions that quite literally grew for the next 25 years. In terms of such a bright girl full of life dying in such unexplained circumstances, until 25 years later, when I was invited to an evening at St Peter's Church in Bournemouth around November 2017, 8 weeks prior to the anniversary, it's the 200th anniversary of Frankenstein on the 1st of January 2018. She's celebrating the 200th anniversary of its publication on the 1st of January 1818. So this kind of literally was like popping a balloon at this point in terms of unanswered questions and this air of mystery. When I was invited quite simply by This Evening and encouraged to take a closer look at Frankenstein. This is the book written by Mary Shelley 200 years ago. And I'll just bring it up on the screen here quickly so you can see what the cover looked like. This is the book I bought in a bookshop in Bournemouth, quite literally after going to the church. And what I discovered initially was the storyline was identical or matched very accurately the altercation between myself and my father. My dad, a retired doctor, and me suffering from monster problems with half my teeth missing, this trauma to my head following car accidents and cancer, etc. I was very able to identify with the monster in this book. And like I say, the altercation between the monster and the doctor matched identically this argument between myself and my dad. So the next thing that I noticed as all this was going on was signs that Mary had encrypted my date of birth into the text using letters, 3-letter C's. And I could see signs straight away that there was something suspicious going on here as soon as I spotted it, in terms of matching, like I say, the 3 6s in my date of birth. And this prompted me to start investigating this issue further. And what I found after some digging was that Mary Shelley was, incidentally, very interested in Greece, as is one of the features on the list here. And one of the interesting things about Greece is the Greek Bible and the fact that this is one of the first versions, or the first version of the Bible, first translation that used an alphabet that served 2 purposes at the same time. The alphabet was used to identify numbers as well as letters. So the letter C, I later found out in the Greek Bible, as we can see here. This is the translation of the Greek Bible on the top line. This is from the book of Revelation, by the way, chapter 13, verse 18. The last line, and his number is 666. They've used a C here to denote the number 6, which incidentally is called a stigma in the Greek alphabet. So that stigma was used to denote the number 6, and I then could see very clear evidence that Mary Shelley had taken this idea and used it to decorate her book, in terms of, well, just taking that C and put it into the text here. This is shown a little bit more clearly like this, in terms of putting 3 C's into the beginning of the chapter for somebody to find in 200 years' time. And this is the point of this exercise, incidentally, is this was done intentionally for me to find, I believe, in 200 years' time. It was a little experiment that she thought would be quite exciting, and incidentally it has come to pass in real time, in real life. What she planned in her head, I believe, has happened on the world stage, in terms of, yes, I did pick up the book, I found it there, and I've used that to actually learn a lot of other interesting things, in terms of this being a precursor to a number of other revelations, what can only be described as a flurry of revelations. So what I'd like to do is have a quick look at what they are here. A flurry of it. After finding CCC 666 encryption in Frankenstein, I was prompted to investigate further in The Last Man and the Bible, Book of Revelation. So this is what, in terms of a sequence of events, what happened. Just recap quickly. Arrived in Switzerland, found this set of details, left. 3 weeks later, this poor young lady dies. This gives me a further set of details in terms of her age when she died and the location that she died in Switzerland. I was then able to use that to match with Mary Shelley. Then was able to take that and have a look in the book Frankenstein, and lo and behold find evidence of my date of birth encrypted into the text. And then I was able to take that and use that to look into the Bible. I mean, like I say, I was literally almost forced, certainly strongly invited, to look in the Bible, Book of Revelation at this point. And what I found was also evidence in other parts of the Bible of curing cancer and breaking the curse of addiction. This is in Isaiah chapter 6. But I'd like to focus briefly on counting the number of the beast, what happened there, just to summarize that sequence of events in this image here, which is just a summary of events essentially and the evidence that I used found in the Bible to count the number of the beast. The second thing I was prompted to look at was the last man. So after, like I say, finding out all about this and about this, and how that had been used to set up this little feature, then, like I say, yeah, after looking at, this prompted me then, of course, to look in the Bible, which then prompted me to look in The Last Man. This is this book written by Mary Shelley when she describes an extraordinary story of an airborne virus that takes off, beginning, I believe, in China, to spread around the rest of the earth. And incidentally, I was just picked up this book as this pandemic was taking off. So I made a video that I have published on YouTube called COVID Prediction, The Last Man, Mary Shelley. And I'll leave a link to this also in the description of this video to show you how in February 2020 all this was coming true, literally on the world stage. I mean, the story in the book coming true on the world stage as I picked it up. Now, this is the passage that initially caught my attention when I picked up The Last Man, where I found Mary Shelley talking about my character in so much detail and with so much accuracy. I found it impossible to deny that this could be me in a previous lifetime. Not just me in a previous lifetime, but I also found her describing the science of light and one of my favourite subjects in extraordinary accuracy as well, quite literally simultaneously at the same time. And we can see this from this paragraph here where she's talking about Adrian. This is the pseudonym used to talk about her late husband Percy at the time, where she describes him as Adrian felt that he made a part of a great whole. He owned affinity not only with mankind but all nature was akin to him. And this straight away, right from the get-go, is alluding to the science of light and the principles of mind. In this first two lines, Adrian felt that he made a part of a great whole. I mean, what is this diagram other than describing how we are all parts of a great whole? A very ancient philosophy, by the way, understood by Indian gurus millennia ago. So what we're seeing here is a very clear example of a 19th century author describing ancient Indian philosophy in her book. And she goes on to say he owned affinity not only with mankind but all nature was akin to him. The mountains and sky were his friends, the winds of heaven and the offspring of earth his playmates. He, the focus only of this mighty mirror, felt his life mingle with the universe of existence. So while he, the focus only of this mighty mirror, felt his life mingle with the universe of existence, which again I find completely and utterly undeniable in terms of describing this diagram here on the screen in front of us and the science of light and principles of mind. She then says Adrian and Raymond, this is another pseudonym for another character in her life, Lord Byron. Raymond now came into contact. Adrian and Raymond now came into contact, and a spirit of aversion rose between them. Adrian despised the narrow views of the politician, and Raymond held in supreme contempt the benevolent visions of the philanthropist. So there again, I had another piece of evidence that could identify me in a previous lifetime, quite simply from the friction between myself and political systems that seems to be a permanent feature. And the contempt, shown from both sides, toward the other. So that was enough to prompt me to have a closer look at this book and all the descriptions provided by Mary Shelley about this character, Adrian, all the explanations and narratives surrounding this pseudonym and this character, for me to compared to my own personality. And by the time I'd finished that exercise, I was about 99% sure this was me she was talking about, in light of all the previous evidence found in Frankenstein, etc. This is inside here, in this encryption, etc. So this then prompted me to have a look at Percy Shelley's literature and compare it to my own literature, which was the next logical step to make. Starting with The Necessity of Atheism, one of the first publications that Percy Shelley wrote while he was at university, Oxford University, that very quickly got him expelled due to the content, but nevertheless was able to provide me with further evidence, and highly compelling evidence, that I have discovered myself in a previous lifetime, starting with a paragraph that I identified inside this article, The Necessity of Atheism, that matched almost identically what I'd found a few days earlier inside The Last Man. In other words, Percy Shelley talking about the science of light and the journey of the soul and the principles of mind in a very similar fashion to Mary Shelley in The Last Man, but this time in The Necessity of Atheism, a publication that he wrote a couple of years before he even met Mary, who was Mary Godwin at the time. So this was absolutely astounding in terms of, hang on a minute, I was mind blown, literally blown away by this, and now all of a sudden I found another one. And if we have a look, Percy says, "What is life? Thoughts and feelings arise with or without our will, and we employ words to express them. We are born, and our birth is unremembered, and our infancy remembered but in fragments. We live on, and in living we lose the apprehension of life. How vain is it to think that words can penetrate the mystery of our being. Rightly used, they make evident our ignorance to ourselves, and this is much. For what are we? Whence do we come, and whither do we go? Is birth the commencement? Is death the conclusion of our being? What is birth and death?" Well, is death the conclusion of our being? Is it the ultimate termination to our existence? This diagram suggests no, it's not. This diagram suggests it's an illusion. This diagram suggests that we are falling for the illusion, and in falling for this illusion, putting ourselves through a great deal of pain and misery. And this misery can be avoided simply by understanding the nature of mind and the nature of the illusion. And once we understand this nature of illusion, then of course we're able to engage more fully with the processes with which our mind works and facilitate this process of rebirth and reincarnation simply by our awareness of it. Just before I go, I would like to remind everybody that we have been gifted with the most extraordinary wealth of evidence here in terms of this golden opportunity to compare a large wealth of literature from one lifetime to a large wealth of literature in a present lifetime. And this starts with The Necessity of Atheism, and the very fact that this is just written about a general spiritual subject 200 years ago, in exactly the same vein as I wrote The Rainbow Remedy about a general spiritual subject with a slightly different title. So what we have is just a booklet written about a general spiritual subject with a slightly different title that we can use to compare two lifetimes. And it doesn't stop there, of course, because this booklet is one of dozens of publications that we can find online, that anybody can access online for free. and compared to dozens of publications that I've published for free, available on my blog site here. So I'll leave the links in the description, and a reminder that yes, this is one of the most gigantic collections of evidence seen in human history to compare two lifetimes together. And this is by no means trying to influence your decision at all, just a reminder of the facts. And incidentally, this evidence doesn't just stop at all these dozens of publications published in each lifetime. It also includes the Bible, counting the number of the beast, all the evidence found there, as well as in Frankenstein and all the evidence found there. So this accumulation of evidence that keeps arriving on a daily basis has got to the point, certainly from a personal point of view, where all doubt has been erased from my mind. You may feel differently. You may wish to sit back for a while and have a closer look at these articles, this literature and evidence before you reach a decision. And that is, of course, my profound desire. My other desire, of course, is, or my other concern is that I have managed to present the evidence as clearly and accurately as possible to gift you this opportunity of a fully informed decision and arriving at a conclusion with enough evidence to make a fully informed decision. And I hope this is enough to at least quell some of the skepticism raised by the Richard Vobes interview recently. And I'll thank you for your time, thank you for watching, and if you do find anything you disagree with or agree with or any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments.